Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. Tension is brewing between Kenya and the other East African nations, and it is going to hamper the sustainable growth of trade opportunities among these countries. And the one person who is escalating this problem is our President, William Samoei Ruto. Now, this is because William Ruto has decided to isolate the other East African countries, negotiate a trade deal for himself, going against a long culture that has seen all these countries negotiating some trade deals together. Now, let me give you an overview of what is happening. William Ruto is one person, ever since he took over the presidency, he has been calling upon the nations to bring down trade barriers in Africa, to enhance bilateral and multilateral trade between the African states. And he's saying that these barriers were created by Europe. And so he made a really wonderful statement that most of these African states thought was the best way to go. This is what William Ruto said, that we must bring down these barriers, convert them to stepping stones, and build bridges of friendship. Look at that. We bring them down, convert them into stepping stones, and build bridges of friendship. But is it really friendship? Because I will demonstrate to you that William Ruto has got a culture starting from home, hoodwinking every person around him. And I can assure you that in the long run, William Ruto will lose most of his friends. Now, in 2019, Britain pulled away from the European Union under Brexit. When they did that, they started seeking for trade agreements with other trade blocs away from the European Union, setting and charting their own economic, political, and social path. So with that, they visited every trade bloc, whether it is East African Community, all these SADC and all that. Apparently, the East African Community used to trade under one tariff with the European Union before Britain exited from the European Union. Now, let me just explain what a tariff is, because sometimes we can do such analysis and some people don't understand, and I know most of us understand. A tariff, in simple terms, is just a tax that is imposed on goods or services that are imported into one country from another. For example, if Kenya imports sugar from Uganda, they can decide to put a tariff on it, maybe 20% tariff. So when they do that, the sugar from Uganda will cost more than the locally manufactured sugar. It is always meant to increase the prices of goods and commodities from another country to protect the local manufacturers. Because when you impose a tariff on a product, it becomes slightly more expensive than the local product. So it is usually done to protect the local manufacturers. So the East African Community, that is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, used to trade under one tariff. That simply means that the goods that were being imported from the UK into the East Africa, or the ones that East Africa, those countries that I've mentioned, used to export to the European Union, that deal was done under one tariff, so that you don't have goods exported from maybe Kenya exporting their goods and services to the UK, and they are being charged 20%. And when it's happening in Uganda, 10%. When it is happening in Rwanda, they decided to work with one common tariff. William Ruto has also been calling upon the African nations in East Africa to abolish tariffs, so that when we do a cross-border trading, exports and imports, we do it without any tariffs. And with that, these nations thought that, wow, William Ruto is speaking sense. But something happened that has really vexed the other East African nations. When the UK, or when Britain, yes, visited Kenya, William Ruto decided to have a meeting with Britain to negotiate for a trade deal between Kenya and Britain, isolating the other East African countries. And this has really vexed the other East African nations, because they are wondering why William Ruto cannot just do what has been happening. Why can't it stick to the norm? Because they've been trading under one tariff. So in retaliation, the other East African countries have decided to gang up together against William Ruto. Museveni, Suluhu of TZ, Kagame of Rwanda, and all the other presidents have organized for a pan-East African trade meeting with the UK. And they want to negotiate as a team, as it used to happen with the European Union. Now, this betrayal from William Ruto is coming just a few weeks after Museveni accused William Ruto of bad trade behavior, because William Ruto had cancelled a trade deal between Kenya and Uganda, where Kenya used to import powdered milk, and without notice he decided to cancel it. Even after there was an intervention from Ugandan minister, William Ruto told them that that milk could be imported, but the Ugandan farmers are saying that nothing of the sort is happening. And if you look at what is happening, you will realize that Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the president of Uganda, boycotted the much hyped Africa Climate Summit that happened in Nairobi. And you wonder, because all along we've always thought that William Ruto and Yoweri Kaguta Museveni are friends. The question is, what is really happening? Because it seems like our president is a cunning man. He can cheat everyone. He cheats people in Kenya. He tells you what you want to hear. He promises you quite a lot, yet he can implement very little. The other day, he moved to the African community, and he was speaking about how we cannot depend on dollar when we do our trade between Africans. Why must we bring in dollar? It is high time we do away with the dollar. And people, he was really labeled the new Pan-Africanist. Then a moment of reckoning came when all the other African nations decided that they want to seek the new trade pathways, and there was a meeting between Russia and African nations. William Ruto refused to go there, yet he was talking about a non-dependent on dollar and US. And I will tell you that William Ruto is behaving like the last born of the US and the UK, because they gave him his powers, and he is willing to do everything that they want without question. If you look at Uganda, they refused LGBTQ, and as a result of that, World Bank suspended certain aid to the tune of some billions of shillings, because Museveni decided to protect the culture of their people. Now William Ruto is beginning to behave like someone who is like a puppet. The European Union, the UK, US will tell him turn right and he turns, turn left and he turns. And this is the reason why I think even the UK would be willing to sign a trade deal between UK and Kenya before he now gets to the other East African community. Why? You've realized that America and some of these Western countries will peg their aid and these trading blocks and trade agreements on some of their conditions. The condition will be LGBTQ, they could be the GMO, they could be you must if you have some subsidies, you must remove them. They could be you must increase taxes regardless of what your people think. And William Ruto would easily accept, unlike the other countries which will question and will even refuse to certain terms. And so William Ruto might have just decided that he's going it alone, and the Western countries will be easily moved to sign a deal with him. But it also shows that William Ruto is very dishonest. It reminds me of the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, who once said that he met William Ruto once and he concluded that he cannot trust William Ruto, that William Ruto is not trustworthy. And it's coming out very clearly after hoodwinking African Union, after the African Union, AU, that they could, move away from dollar, move away from America. It is now very clear that William Ruto is a child of the dollar, a child of the USA and the UK. After hoodwinking the East Africa EAC bloc, that they could work together, sign trade deals together, and he was even urging that we remove the trade barrier tariffs. He's now going it alone and leaving the other nations. And this is not very good, because when people trade or meet and negotiate deals as a group, they always have an upper hand. Unlike when William Ruto would go it alone. And the reason that has been a problem in Africa is that Africans have been divided. The Western nations have used divide and rule on them, so that when they negotiate trade deals, they go as individuals. They can't go as a group, because when you are united, mkona nguvu, you've got power to negotiate as a team. That is why our resources are being exploited. We don't follow the Nagoya Protocol. When we try to have good deals, there are a lot of political unrest. If you look at Congo, what is happening? The richest country, they have mineral and natural resources, but that country is very poor. Why? Because Africans cannot unite together to negotiate as a team, to tell the Western that no, we can't accept this. People like the leaders like President William Ruto will go it alone. And this is going to create a rift, because they no longer trust William Ruto. Moving forward, they might just decide, you will even hear them talking about East Africa, they might decide to isolate William Ruto, so that William Ruto goes it alone.